Welcome to another episode of the MemcycoFM show. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a cybersecurity threat that's, well, pretty sneaky and surprisingly effective. Evil twin attacks. Now, we all think we're pretty clued up about phishing, right? But this takes deception to a whole other level. It often targets you when your guard is completely down. Our mission for this deep dive, to really unpack what an evil twin attack actually is, and also, crucially, why it's becoming such a major entry point for things like real-time credential theft and ultimately account takeover. Plus, we need to look at what genuinely effective prevention looks like, because as we'll find out, a lot of traditional defenses, well, they often fall short here. So get ready, because some of your assumptions about online security might just get challenged today. Okay, let's start there. This term, evil twin attack, it sounds dramatic, almost like something from a movie. What are we actually talking about in cybersecurity terms?
Yeah, it does sound dramatic, doesn't it? But it's very real. At its core, an evil twin attack is basically a sophisticated kind of Wi-Fi phishing.
Yeah.
So imagine you're somewhere like a coffee shop or an airport, maybe even your office lobby, and you see a Wi-Fi network that looks totally legitimate. You know, airport free Wi-Fi or hotel guest network, something like that.
Happens all the time.
Exactly. So what the attacker does is set up their own rogue Wi-Fi access point, but they make it mimic one of those legitimate networks perfectly. Victims then connect to this fake hotspot, often without realizing it's fake. And once you're connected, the attacker is sitting in the middle. They can intercept your traffic, redirect you, essentially control your connection.
Wow, it's like a digital imposter.
Precisely. It's a man-in-the-middle attack just facilitated through this dodgy Wi-Fi network.
That is a bit chilling, especially when you think how often we just connect automatically. So how do they actually, set the trap? What are the common tactics to make it look so real?
They're quite clever about it, and unfortunately, these setups aren't that hard to deploy, technically speaking. The main trick is copying the exact SSID, that's the network name you see, listed of a real nearby Wi-Fi network.
Okay, so it looks identical.
Identical. Then they might boost their signal strength, so their fake network actually appears stronger or more reliable than the real one on your devices list.
Making it more tempting to connect to.
Exactly. And they definitely exploit our device's auto-connect settings. If you've connected to airport free Wi-Fi before, your phone might just jump onto the fake one next time without asking.
Right, convenience working against us.
It really can. And once you're connected, they often throw up a fake captive portal. You know those pages where you have to click accept or maybe log in?
Yeah, the login screens.
Well, they create fake versions of those, designed to steal your credentials. And not just for the Wi-Fi, maybe for your email or your bank, depending on how sophisticated they are.
Okay, I'm already mentally reviewing my Wi-Fi habits. This sounds way more subtle than just getting a dodgy email. How is it fundamentally different from, say, the usual phishing emails or scam texts we get?
Yeah, that's the key difference and why it's so concerning. Evil twins bypass a lot of the usual defenses because they don't rely on you clicking a bad link or opening a file. Your trust is exploited differently. You trust the Wi-Fi network itself, or you think you do.
I see. So my email filter or browser warning might not even come into play.
Often, no. With a normal phishing email, your browser might flag the URL as suspicious, right? Or your email filters might catch it. But here, you're on a network that seems fine. They can redirect you to spoofed login pages that might look exactly like the real thing, and sometimes without triggering those browser warnings we rely on. This allows for immediate, real-time credential theft, and that leads directly to account takeover, often before you even know anything's wrong.
So it's not just tricking a click, it's manipulating the whole connection.
Precisely. It's leveraging the connection itself. And these attacks are often just the first step in a bigger fraud chain. They get the credentials, and then they move on to drain accounts or steal identities.
Okay, this is where it gets really serious then. Why are evil twin attacks becoming such a major threat vector for account takeover, for ATO? This isn't just annoying spam, this is real financial risk.
Yeah, the danger really lies in how stealthy and fast they are, and how they kind of subvert our usual security instincts. Like we said, you don't click a link, just connecting is the risk. Often, there are no obvious red flags. And here's something that really trips people up. Even things like HTTPS, the padlock icon we're all told to look for, that won't necessarily save you here.
Hey, really? The padlock doesn't mean it's safe. I thought that was the whole point.
Well, it means your connection to the server you're talking to is encrypted. But in an evil twin attack, you might be talking to the attacker's server. They act as a proxy. They fetch the real site's content, complete with its valid SSL certificate, and show it to you.
So my browser shows the padlock because it has a secure connection to the attacker.
Exactly. And the attacker has a secure connection to the real site. Everything looks perfectly normal to you, padlock and all, but your data is flowing right through them. It's incredibly deceptive.
Okay, that's deeply worrying. And the truly shocking part, they can even get past multi-factor authentication. MFA is supposed to be our fallback, our strong defense.
Yes, and this is a critical point. They can bypass MFA using something called real-time relay. Think of it this way. The attacker isn't breaking the MFA code itself. They're just passing it along.
How does that work?
So you connect to the fake Wi-Fi, get sent to the fake login page, you enter your username and password, the attacker grabs those, they immediately use those credentials on the real site. The real site then sends back an MFA challenge, like a code, to your phone. The attacker relays that challenge prompt to you on the fake page. You enter the code from your phone.
And the attacker grabs that too.
Instantly. And passes that valid, time-sensitive code straight to the real site. From the real site's perspective, it just looks like a legitimate login sequence. You provided the right password, the right MFA code. Boom. The attacker now has control of your authenticated session.
Wow. That completely neutralizes that layer of security.
It does in this specific scenario.
Yeah.
Which, raises a big question. Why don't our standard security tools, things like VPNs, web application firewalls, even those fancy threat intelligence feeds, why don't they catch this stuff early on?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. We pour resources into those defenses. Why aren't they stopping this?
Well, the fundamental issue is where these tools typically focus their attention. Most traditional security defends the network perimeter or analyzes things at the server level. Think of it like guarding the main gate of a castle. They're good at stopping invaders trying to storm the gate. But an evil twin attack is more like someone already inside the castle walls sets up a fake information booth and tricks you into handing over your keys right there.
Okay, so the defenses are looking in the wrong place.
In a way, yes. They don't really monitor or understand the manipulations happening inside your browser during a live web session. And that's precisely where this specific threat unfolds. A VPN, for instance, encrypts traffic between you and the VPN server. Great for privacy on public Wi-Fi usually. But if you connect to the rogue Wi-Fi first and get redirected to the fake page before your VPN fully kicks in or tunnels that specific traffic, the damage might already be done.
Right.
And web application firewalls, or WAFs, they protect the website server. But if the credential theft happens on a completely separate spoofed website that looks like the real one, the way is blind to it until the attacker tries to use the stolen credentials on the actual site.
So the attack happens outside the WAF's view.
Exactly. It happens in that interaction space between the user and the fake site, right in the browser.
Okay, so given how sophisticated this is and how it slips past common defenses, who are the main targets? Is it just random people, or are attackers going after specific types of accounts or industries?
Well, it definitely happens opportunistically on public Wi-Fi. We're increasingly seeing it used in very targeted attacks against specific sectors. High-value targets are definitely a focus. Think financial institutions, fintech platforms where direct account access means immediate cash out for the attacker.
Makes sense. Follow the money.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Also, e-commerce sites and retail loyalty programs. They hold tons of personal data, stored payment methods. Very valuable. Airlines, travel booking sites again. Sensitive data, payment details, plus disrupting travel can be leveraged. And interestingly, even remote access tools or VPN providers themselves can be targets. Compromise those, and an attacker might get a foothold into a whole corporate network.
So anywhere with valuable accounts, data, or further access.
Pretty much anywhere the account value is high or there's a rich identity profile to steal and exploit.
And this isn't just theoretical, is it? You mentioned a real-world example from 2024 that really brings this home.
Yes, absolutely. There was a case uncovered by Australian cybersecurity researchers just this year, 2024. A passenger on a regular domestic flight actually set up an evil twin network mimicking the airline's official in-flight Wi-Fi.
On the plane itself?
On the plane. So multiple passengers just wanting to get online during the flight saw this familiar-looking Wi-Fi name, connected, and were presented with a spoofed login page. And, thinking it was the legitimate airline service, they entered their real frequent flyer credentials, potentially passwords they reuse elsewhere.
Oh, wow. Right there in the cabin.
Right there.
Yeah.
And several people had their accounts compromised before the attack was detected and shut down. It just shows how fast this can happen and how convincing it can be in a trusted environment. People just don't expect it. And adding to that, another report from Cybersecurity Insiders in 2024 really highlighted this trend. They found that 67%, two-thirds of enterprises were citing session-based account takeover as a growing concern.
67%, that's huge.
Yeah, it is. It shows this isn't some niche edge case problem anymore. It's becoming mainstream, and it really underscores why we need protection that operates differently, specifically looking at that browser session.
Okay, so that leads us to the crucial question. If traditional network monitoring isn't really cutting it, and even things like VPNs or secure Wi-Fi protocols like EAPTLS aren't foolproof against this browser-level trickery, what does it take? How do we actually prevent evil twin phishing and stop these real-time ATO attempts? Can't we just get better at detecting the rogue Wi-Fi itself?
Well, trying to detect the rogue network itself is, frankly, incredibly difficult in most real-world scenarios. You'd need specialized software on every single device, constantly scanning. It's not very practical. But more importantly, even if you could detect the rogue Wi-Fi the instant it pops up, that's often too late or doesn't address the core vulnerability. The real damage, the credential theft, happens after you connect, when you interact with that fake page in your browser.
Right, the detection of the network doesn't stop the interaction problem.
Exactly. Even with strong network controls, like certificate-based Wi-Fi, which is common in companies, those protect the connection to the legitimate network. They don't, and really can't, see what happens if a user gets tricked onto a different network and then interacts with a malicious site in their browser. So what truly matters is having defenses that kick in the moment that phishing attempt actually reaches the browser session. That's the battleground.
Okay, so the solution has to live essentially at the browser level, right, where the user is clicking and typing. What specific capabilities are needed then? What should a security solution be able to do to stop these attacks?
Right. To really tackle this effectively, you need a few key things operating right there in the session. First, you absolutely need browser-level visibility. The solution has to be able to see what's happening in the browser in real time.
See the page content, the interactions.
Yes. Monitor user behavior, spot subtle manipulations, detect if the page content is spoofed or if there's a suspicious redirection happening. Compare the live experience against what the legitimate site should look like. Second, you need immediate phishing site detection. And crucially, this has to work even for brand new sites, ones that aren't in any known threat database yet. Attackers spin these up constantly.
So it can't just rely on blacklists.
No, it needs to analyze the page characteristics itself in real time, looking for signs of phishing. Third, unusual device login detection. Being able to spot if the device fingerprint suddenly changes mid-session. That could indicate an attacker relaying your connection.
Like a digital imposter taking over the session.
Kinda, yeah. Fourth, related to that, is suspicious session behavior monitoring. Looking for odd patterns. Maybe the geographic location suddenly jumps, or the way someone navigates the site looks automated or just wrong. Things indicative of credential relay. And fifth, this one's really clever, decoy data injection.
Decoy data, what's that?
It means if the system suspects you're on a phishing page, and you unfortunately type in your username and password, the system can intercept that before it leaves your browser and swap your real credentials for fake, useless ones.
Oh, wow. So the attacker gets garbage data.
Exactly. They get decoy credentials, they try to use them, it fails, and they're immediately flagged, while your real credentials were never exposed. These capabilities together form the core of effective browser-level protection. They fill that gap traditional defenses leave open.
That sounds incredibly powerful, really shifting the defense right to the point of attack and even turning the tables. And this is where a solution like Memcyco comes in, right? It focuses specifically on that browser session. How does Memcyco actually stop these attacks as they happen?
That's precisely its focus. Memcyco doesn't try to detect the rogue Wi-Fi network itself because, like we said, that's difficult and often not the most effective point of intervention. Instead, it focuses entirely on defeating the attack where it counts. Inside the browser session, where those first critical signs of ATO actually appear. It uses some really advanced tech called device DNA and session intelligence.
Device DNA sounds unique.
It is. Think of device DNA as creating this incredibly detailed, unique fingerprint of your specific browser environment. It looks at hundreds of parameters, browser type, version, operating system plugins, screen resolution, network configuration, even subtle things like typing patterns or mouse movements.
So it knows what your normal looks like.
Exactly. And session intelligence then continuously monitors the live session, looking for any deviations from that normal baseline, any abnormal device behavior. For instance, if an attacker is trying to relay your session, maybe they trick you onto a fake site, steal your initial login, and then try to carry that session over to the real site. Memcyco can spot that. It sees the sudden, inexplicable shift in the device DNA or session characteristics after that phishing referral. That's a massive red flag.
Okay, so it spots the anomalies. What else?
Well, remember the decoy data. If a user does accidentally enter credentials on a page MemcyCo identifies as phishing, it performs that real-time swap. The attacker gets useless data, tries to use it on the real site, and bam, they're blocked and exposed, and the real account was never compromised.
That's brilliant. Proactive defense.
And it goes further. Users also get real-time browser alerts. We call them red alerts. These pop up directly in their browser, warning them before they even enter credentials if they've landed on a suspected spoofed page. It stops the compromise before it happens. Plus, it's constantly tracking those suspicious login patterns that might indicate someone is trying to use stolen credentials obtained through relay attacks. It adds multiple layers of defense, all operating dynamically within the session.
And a really big advantage, I imagine, especially for businesses deploying this, is that it doesn't need anything installed on the user's device, right? Or on the attacker's fake site.
Precisely. That's a huge benefit. Unlike endpoint security agents, which need to be installed and managed on every single user device, or network scanners that just see traffic at the edge, MemcyCo is typically embedded into the genuine website or integrates with the existing web application firewall.
So it protects users without them needing to install anything.
Correct. No user friction, no software for them to manage. It works from the perspective of the genuine site, using all these sophisticated browser-level signals to detect spoofing, credential replay, and session anomalies without ever needing access to the attacker's shady infrastructure. It fundamentally shifts protection to be proactive and happen right where the interaction occurs.
So tying this all together for our listeners, what's the big takeaway here? It really sounds like we need to maybe adjust our thinking about how we prevent these kinds of sophisticated attacks?
I think that's right. Evil twin attacks, while not a brand new concept, have really evolved into a primary tool for seamless, real-time account takeover. Their ability to bypass traditional defenses makes them incredibly potent. If your security stack, your current defenses, can't reliably detect these spoofed sessions or the subtle device switching and session anomalies indicative of relay attacks, then you're essentially leaving the door wide open once a user connects to one of these malicious networks. At this point, having browser-based protection specifically designed to counter these real-time ATO attempts isn't really optional anymore. It's becoming the only truly effective way to stop the credential theft before the damage is done. It's about securing that crucial human interaction point with the web.
What a fascinating deep dive. It really highlights a critical and evolving threat vector. It's clear that while these evil twin attacks are definitely stealthy and worryingly pervasive, these advanced browser-level solutions are now emerging to meet that challenge head-on, protecting us right where we interact.
Yeah, just think about it for a moment. How many different public Wi-Fi networks have you connected to over the years? Airports, cafes, hotels, conference centers.
Countless.
Exactly. And you might have been vulnerable in those moments without even realizing it, without this kind of dynamic in-session protection. It really does shift the defensive focus to where the attack actually happens, right inside your browser.
Absolutely. Well, if you, our listeners, are curious to see exactly how a solution like MemcyCo provides this kind of real-time browser-level defense against these advanced threats, you might want to consider booking a demo. It's a really good way to see the specifics of how this protection works in action. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive today.